I don't know why I don't hear her little voice saying recording in progress.
Oh, I don't know.
Seems like we should, right?
Are you on mute?
I'm not on mute. Oh, yeah. Turn it up. Yeah. No, the speaker here is not up. Is it?
You go back to what you're doing.
Okay. Okay. Happy Sakadawa, everybody. I didn't realize that these classes on the wisdom chapter would be occurring coinciding with Sakadawa, and it actually is pretty auspicious. This is what Geshe says, very auspicious that we're studying wisdom at this time. That the energy of the Sakadawa, the fact that this particular period of time was blessed by the Buddha, so that anybody who practiced compassion and wisdom during this time, those practices would be amplified and magnified. And so it's kind of a great thing that we're doing this wisdom chapter at this time. Geshe suggested that we do a particular mantra on Friday. This is a mantra he gave us before, and I'm going to go over it, and I'll post it when I post the study guides and the recordings of these videos. I'll post this mantra as well as a separate PDF so everybody has it. This is called the essence of causation mantra. And the meaning of it is that the first line is that all dharma originates from causes. And dharma is...
The mantras you're talking about?
It's the essence of causation mantra.
I mean,
I just explained.
Do you want to say it or me?
I'm going to say it. No, I'm going to say it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I explained.
Did you send it in the email?
No, I said I'll send it when I send the stuff out in the next day.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Merritt.
Hi, Sarah, does it say mom?
No.
Okay.
So that first line, all dharma originates from causes. The word dharma we normally think of as the teachings of the Buddha, but the Sanskrit word has a much broader meaning. And I'll read you the meaning written by a Theravada monk and scholar called Walpola Rahula. There is nothing in the universe or outside, good or bad, conditioned or non-conditioned, relative or ultimate, which is not included in the term dharma. So dharma broadly means everything that exists. So here's that first line then. All dharma, everything that exists, originates from causes. And that in the first line in Sanskrit is Om Ye Dharma Hetu Prabhava. Om Ye Dharma Hetu Prabhava. All dharma, everything that exists, originates from causes. Second line is Hetu Tesham Tathagato Yavadat. Hetu Tesham Tathagato Yavadat. And that means that the Tathagata, the Buddha, has taught these causes, the causes of everything. The third line is Tesham cha yo nirodha. Tesham cha yo nirodha. And that means the Tathagata has also taught that which puts a stop to the causes. So it's talking about the causes of suffering and the cessation of suffering. What causes the cessation of suffering? And then the last line is Evam Vadi Mahashramanana, which means this too has been taught by the great Shramana. And I don't know who that is. I'll find out who that is, the great Shramana. So I'll just say that again in Sanskrit. Om Ye Dharma Hetu Prabhava. Hetu Tesham Tathagato Yavadat. Tesham cha yo nirodha. Evam Vadi Mahashramanana Swoha. And then they end it with Swoha. So Geshe Nima said this is a very powerful mantra for us to be saying during this time of Sakadawa. And he also then gave us a stanza, which is an excerpt from the 18th chapter of Nagarjuna's Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way. And here's the stanza.
Recording in progress.
What happened? Why are we getting a feedback? You don't know? Okay. So here's the stanza from the 18th chapter of Nagarjuna's Fundamental Wisdom. By extinguishing actions and afflictions, there is liberation. Actions and afflictions arise from misconceptions, and misconceptions arise from elaborations. Elaborations will cease through cultivating emptiness. In other words, we elaborate what everything, we give everything the meaning that it has for us. You know, we elaborate on that. And the problem is we are misconceiving the way things actually exist. And we're going to talk a lot about this today. This is what this chapter is about, which is why these are really good to say before going through each part of this chapter. Okay, we'll leave that there, and then, so I will post these. I will post these when I send out the videos and the study guides. So we'll do some opening prayers, taking refuge in generating bodhicitta. I'll do the first time. I'll say it in English, and then the second two times will be the Tibetan. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by listening to teachings and the other paramitas, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And actually, I think we should think, rather than I take refuge, let's think we take refuge. May we attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chedang sogi choknam la jangchu pardu dakni kiap suchi dagi chenyang gipe sonam ki rola penchir sangye druparso sangye chedang sogi choknam la Jangchu bardu dagni kiap suchi dagi chenyen gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye druparto. And then the next opening prayer, which is a prayer for bodhisattvas to be saying every day. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is completely free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies.
I was thinking of Geshe Zopa when we do that, how he did a very extensive.
Oh, yeah, we did. And then we look at the 7-limb prayer. We'll just recite that. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends and turn the wheel of dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and all others to the great enlightenment. And then finally, we will do the mandala offering, where we're actually picturing the outcome of a world where all beings are enlightened. So just pick, however you imagine that, picture that as we offer this mandala to our gurus, to the Buddhas, to the Dharma realizations, and to the assembly of bodhisattvas. Imagine that they're all in the space in front of us as we offer this mandala. Jokshing meto Tramri Sangye Shindu Mide Ulwagi Rokunam Dakshinam Chepasho. And offer that mandala into the heart of all the gurus, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, as we say, Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayam. Okay, well, the day has finally come when we're doing some people call it, I think Wollstonecraft Fletcher calls it the infamous 9th chapter of the Bodhicharya, the infamous.
Oh,
He calls it the infamous 9th chapter. Wollstonecraft Fletcher didn't even get to it.
I know, we have a children's book, she
She didn't get to it. There's a book I've got that the Holy Lama, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, did, and he didn't get to it. So Geshe Nima said, you get to it. And so here we are, this day has arrived. And we will do our best. So this is based on, all of this is based on many, many things. The commentary by Khenpo Kunpel, there is a commentary that occurred later that is based on a teaching just on the 9th chapter that His Holiness gave, and B. Allen Wallace translated that. He gave that in France. They asked him to come back and finish, and so he came back and finished. Then there are other teachings by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There are teachings by Geshe Drakpa that he gave us on emptiness. There are teachings by a Geshe called Geshe Lundup Zopa and Jeffrey Hopkins, who gave teachings on the Buddhist tenets, which are something we will talk about today. And then there are teachings by Guy Newland, who also gave teachings on emptiness and the Buddhist tenets, and Andy Wistreich, who is a Kala Chakra, a Tantra teacher of ours that we know, who was given really great teachings on emptiness. So those are all going into what we're going to be discussing today. So here is the first stanza of the 9th chapter. All these branches of the doctrine.
you look really happy to meet her.
Is
Don't
that it?
worry, you might get enlightened just as a side effect.
All these branches of the doctrine, the enlightened sage expounded for the sake of wisdom. Therefore, they must cultivate this wisdom who wish to have an end to suffering. So what that is saying is that for all of us who are following the Mahayana path, the Buddha taught everything that was in the first 8 chapters of the Bodhicharyavatara, everything that has to do with bodhicitta and the perfection of generosity, ethical discipline, patience, enthusiastic effort, meditative concentration, that was all taught as a preliminary to this wisdom chapter. Because without having a direct realization of wisdom, and that direct realization of wisdom in Sanskrit is called prajna, in Tibetan is called Sherab. That direct realization of wisdom realizing emptiness is the direct cause for us to be able to remove all the stains on our mind stream that block our obscurations to enlightenment and liberation from cyclic existence. That direct realization of emptiness. And then the final, once we've done that, we go through the rest of the, we talked about the five paths, the path of seeing, and then you go into these levels of all these bhumis, where you have these realizations. That occurs after the direct realization of wisdom realizing emptiness. And when we've completed all of those things and removed all those obscurations, then we have what's called exalted primordial wisdom. And this is the wisdom, it's called jnana in Sanskrit and Geshe in Tibetan. And that's the wisdom of Buddhahood. That's the final ultimate goal. If we want to help all sentient beings achieve happiness, is to become a Buddha. So what we're talking about here is prajna and Sherab, the wisdom, practicing the wisdom that directly can realize realize emptiness. Okay. So even if we only wanted to get rid of our own suffering and achieve liberation from cyclic existence, we would still have to have a direct realization of wisdom realizing emptiness. We'd still have to realize prajna or Sherab. Even if we want to if we just want to relieve all of our suffering, we have to do this. So the root, and there's no other way, we would never be able to uproot anybody else's suffering if we didn't do that either. We didn't have that realization. So the root of all suffering is our grasping at the independent self-existence of all persons and phenomena. We grasp as if they exist from their own side. And that's combined with a mistaken view, or with a mistaken view of how they exist. You know, so it's grasping at the self-existence of all phenomena, and having a mistaken view of how they exist, and the imprints that are put onto our mind stream because of that mistaken view. So in order to sever this root, that's the cause of all suffering, we have to have the wisdom realizing emptiness take hold of our bodhicitta, take hold of our practice of the 5 perfections that precede this wisdom has to imbue all of these practices. This is why the wisdom is so important. So without the wisdom, our perfection of generosity and ethical discipline and patience and enthusiastic effort and meditative concentration will not bring us to enlightenment. We have to have this particular realization of wisdom to get us there, which is why Shantideva says it's so important. He says it's the main and indispensable aspect of the path of enlightenment, is this Sherab prajna, wisdom that realizes emptiness. So we should put a lot of effort and enthusiasm into developing it, because it's the key. It's the key to happiness for ourselves and others. So
Geshe Drakpa, I just always say this. He said, your compassion cannot be reliable without it.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because, you know, once your own personal buttons get pushed, your compassion, as we all have experienced,
goes
the
out,
window.
it flies out the window. So how do we go about doing this? How do we go about doing this? And the first thing Shantideva says is, we have to have an understanding of what is known in Buddhism as the 2 truths. And I know, Brian, you're going to be very interested in this, because you've always, since I've known you and your interest in Buddhism, you've always wanted to know about the 2 truths, and we are really going into it today. So we have to realize that there are 2 truths, relative truth and ultimate truth. And that we have to realize that they are not contradictory, but mutually support each other.
Is relative.
Relative is also known as conventional.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. Relative and conventional are the same thing. I'm using relative.
Relative, we think, is a clearer term.
Seems to be clearer to me, yeah. So to remember that the relative truth and ultimate truth always go together.
They mutually co-arise.
They mutually co-arise. They are like, you know how Kavita said, our compassion doesn't mean anything if we don't have wisdom. Well, what is said in Buddhism is these 2 truths are like the 2 wings of a bird. The compassion wing are all the practices that we do, and they call it the method wing. All the practices, such as bodhicitta, such as the perfections, generosity, ethical discipline, all of those practices, that is called the method wing, and it has to do with compassion. In the Mahayana path, it has to do with the wish to help relieve others' sufferings.
You could also say it's the relative.
And it is the relative part of the path. It's the relative part of the path. Then we have the other wing, which is wisdom. And these are the practices that we're talking about today. And wisdom is the ultimate, corresponds to the ultimate truth. So we have these 2 aspects, method, wisdom, conventional truth, ultimate truth, and they go together like the wings of a bird. If a bird only has one wing, it's not going to fly, it's going to fall. These arise together. When they arise together, they sort of propel us toward enlightenment. So this is what we're trying to develop, these two together, and see how they go together, rather than seeing them as being somehow distinct and separate. So the next stanza that Shantideva of this chapter that he has is relative and ultimate. These, the two truths, are declared to be. The ultimate is not within reach of intellect, for intellect is said to be the relative. Okay, so as we said, the two truths are explained as relative or conventional truth and ultimate truth. All phenomena have two modes of being. There is the appearing mode, which is sort of the multiplicity of all the diversity of everything that appears to us.
Through all of our senses.
Through all of our senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. This is the appearing mode. Then what goes hand in hand with this is what is called the abiding mode, which is a continual, abiding nature of things the way they really are. It's always there. It's in the pillow, it's in me, it's in you, it's in everything. This abiding mode. So which is emptiness. Dependent arising. Dependent arising is a flip way of describing what emptiness is. So this appearing mode is relative truth. And this abiding mode, the way everything actually exists, is ultimate truth. And the way everything exists is that everything is completely empty of any kind of independent self-existence, which, as the Kavita said, is the flip side of that, is everything is dependently arising. It's based on something else. And the thing that it depends on, those things were also dependent arising. There is no end to it. We will never find anything that we can say, this is it. This caused it all. And this is where Buddhism is so different than so many other philosophies. The Buddhism doesn't posit a cause at all. It's beginningless. So everything.
First cause.
A first cause. A first cause, I should say. Thank you. First cause. Yes, there are causes. Causes for everything. Yeah, first cause. Thank you. On their respective levels, the relative truth and ultimate truth are indisputable. We can see that everybody will agree. Everything, there's all these various appearances of everything the way it exists. Multifaceted, diverse, we all agree. That's indisputable. When we understand the nature of dependent arising, then that is also indisputable. We look at everything, we can say, oh, well, yeah, it's true. This actually doesn't exist from its own side, self-existing. Everything we see arose because of various causes and conditions. And there's no end to that. There's no end to that. So that's the reason why they're called two truths. You can't dispute them. When you investigate them, they cannot be disputed. So that's the reason they're called two truths. Here's another way of looking at it. All phenomena other than emptiness are relative truths, right? And all emptinesses are ultimate truths. Anything that's not, but they always go together. This is the part where we need to get clear. So an example would be the mere appearance of a person and their aggregates of body and mind is relative truth. But the complete lack of any independent self-existence of that person and the aggregates of their body and mind is ultimate truth. The complete lack of any independent self-existence of that person.
You can see that why emptiness co-arises.
They co-arise. They co-arise. It's really important for us to.
You can't talk about an emptiness.
There's a mistake. There's a mistake that I made initially, and many people do when they hear about the two truths and they're new to Buddhism and they hear relative truth and ultimate truth. You think, oh, ultimate truth is the real thing. ultimate truth is and relative truth is some kind of like a mistake or it's wrong. That is a total misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Complete misunderstanding of relative truth and ultimate truth. They arise together. They always go together. They're the two wings of the bird, the compassion wing and the wisdom. They must go together.
I was gonna say, the only difference between us and the Buddha is the appearing truth that arises with the ultimate truth is just a completely purified.
Right. Our appearing truth is we put a veil over it that is a misconception of how it is. And that's
Chris, I think our challenge is to understand the ultimate truth path. Relative truth, I can kind of put a perspective of almost like, science helps me with the light, and then you're reflecting in my retina, and then you're appearing in my, so I can put some guideline into defining my relative world. Now, the ultimate is, I think that's the journey we're all into. I mean, we've heard this emptiness and all that, but how do you go about it is,
the topic.
I think,
that is the topic.
and I think it's gonna be a long journey to understand, but at least we have to have some path to go into towards that. My challenge is that relative, I can explain to myself, and I'm okay with the relative because it's me, my mind, my environment, whatever, science, lights, energies, everything is there. But the ultimate is, I hear it, I know, I want it, but it's like, who knows it for sure? Emptiness. That's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully, we get to keep doing this and then eventually come to some kind of answer.
Well, that's why Shantideva says at the beginning of this, the reason the Buddha taught all these other things that have to do with relative truth is so that it would bring us to ultimate truth, so that we could put the two together and give it real meaning,
Because you don't negate the relative.
Mhm.
And that's the catch, that you can just
Right.
say nothing, none of this is real.
Right.
That's why I think a Buddha has a relative truth. It's just perfectly purified.
Right. Well, the Buddha's relative truth and ultimate truth are
Well,
in
yeah.
union. They're in union.
Right.
For us, we don't have a unified experience of that as of yet, but we will. And it may take eons, but we will.
Experts at it. We're experts. at
Okay.
Conceiving.
All right, where was I now? Oh, so the two truths are not essentially distinct entities, right? They are not cut off and separated from each other. As the Heart Sutra says, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form is none other than emptiness. Emptiness is none other than form. What he's talking about in that Heart Sutra are the two truths. They are both true. And they both go together. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. And, if you ever wanted to know what that meant, that's what that means.
And again, I think this concept, mutually co-arising, which Andy Wistreich,
Yeah.
that mutually co-arising thing helps you negate this notion that emptiness is always out there waiting.
Emptiness is it's right here, right now. We're just,
I mean, it's just,
yeah.
it's the mode of existing.
So, as long as the two truths are posited as being essentially distinct entities, we will never have a realization of emptiness. So we need to be very clear about this, what we're talking about, that they always go together, they arise together. How you doing, Brian? Okay.
Hey, would somebody say something? I'm not sure our speaker is working.
I think they just have all muted themselves.
I know.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, they're working. It's working.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to get into the definition of the two truths. Shantideva's statement in the second stanza that I just read, the ultimate is not within the reach of intellect, for intellect is said to be the relative. That requires our careful examination, because some could read that and think what Shantideva is saying is that ultimate truth is beyond the capacity of knowledge, beyond the capacity of knowing, right? Or they could beyond the capacity of the mind being able to know it, or they could think that ultimate truth means it neither exists or is non-existent. So we have to be clear about why Shantideva used the word intellect, because it makes a big difference. Tsongkhapa, in his texts that analyze the highest Madhyamaka view, which is called Prasangika, that's the highest school of Buddhist tenets is Madhyamaka, and the highest sub-school of Madhyamaka is called Prasangika. And when Tsongkhapa, in his various texts, analyzes that highest view, he comes to the same conclusions and presents the view of ultimate truth that agrees with what Shantideva is putting forth here. So the word intellect that Shantideva uses in this stanza refers to a being's capacity for rational and intelligent thought. It's helpful to remember that intellect doesn't mean the same thing as mind in Buddhism. In Buddhism, intellect is conceptual. In Buddhism, mind just means consciousness, awareness, pure and simple. Consciousness, awareness, that which cognizes is the meaning of mind in Buddhism. So Shantideva uses the word intellect, which has more to do with conceptual, rational thought. And what he's saying is, it's beyond a direct realization of emptiness is beyond the reach of that kind of conceptual or rational or even intelligent thought. It's nowhere in the conceptual thought realm. A direct experience of ultimate truth is beyond the reach of intellectual rational concepts. But Shantideva is not saying that ultimate truth is beyond the reach of consciousness that directly realizes it, which is something that is completely inexpressible through words or concepts or thoughts. So this is, we're going to get into some really interesting things that His Holiness the Dalai Lama taught about this. So according to the highest Madhyamika Prasangika philosophy, ultimate truth always refers to emptiness. That is not the case with some of the lower schools, as we will see when we sort of give brief synopses of them. But in Madhyamika Prasangika, ultimate truth always refers to emptiness. When emptiness is directly realized by a consciousness that's imbued with wisdom, nothing appears to the consciousness except a mere absence of independent self-existence. So emptiness merely negates independent self-existence. So His Holiness was saying the wisdom consciousness of a person that has a direct realization of emptiness has no thought that, I am realizing emptiness, or no thought that this is emptiness and I'm realizing it, and no even thought of I and other thing. It's completely non-dual. There is no subject-object. Subject-object is unified. It's what they call it. So what happens in the very, very, very minuscule touches of Mahamudra meditation, where I was able to get a very strange experience of what they're calling the clear light, non-conceptual mind. And it only lasted, I don't know, a couple of seconds or something. But at that time, it was impossible. I couldn't even have a conceptual thought. I was just experiencing something, and it was very blissful. So what happens is there's this arising of a blissful awareness that is unified. Well, let me see how he puts it. It's a complete, non-dualistic, unified blissful arising of consciousness directly realizing emptiness. Not saying, oh, that's emptiness, and not saying I'm realizing it, but just you are unified with it, and there is no concept. So that's sort of just hold that in your head a little bit. Is that's what you can maybe plan to experience at some point, because I think some of us have had little glimpses of that, and it's enough to make you go, oh wow, this really what they're talking about really is
What were
true.
you doing on that Mahamudra to feel like that?
It was a whole process. What basically what we did is we went through and we were saying, like, everything that appears to our conscious, our mind, we're giving it all the meaning that it has for it. So we were basically letting go, and then just trying to experience the moment. I mean, there's a whole, we'd have to go through it takes a while. But the Mahamudra meditation can
Recognize.
huh?
I was gonna say, not recognizing anything. That's the point,
Yeah.
I've always
right?
thought or heard or taught somewhere outside of this context that people, you know, as human beings, because we all have the Buddha we all have this nature within us, that people can experience that like in unexpected like glimpses, like you say, little glimpses. And then because there's no reference to it, you know, you try to put it into a frame of reference, or you may just have an experience, little glimpses. But the more we educate ourselves in what this is, then we have reference, and we understand really what it's about, and we can learn to cultivate it like in the practices. But that there are many, or maybe not many, but there are incidences of experiencing that, but it's so fleeting, and the mind takes in so quickly that it kind of, you know, categorizes it and then it's gone.
If you get the glimpse of those, I think that's a spark we need. It may last for even a millisecond, but I think that's the spark we're looking for, which is the glimpse of what just Chris mentioned. That's, you know, to be in the pure being nothingness where you feel that, and then our intelligence and mind just take over right away. That's our challenge.
The interesting thing is, it's not nothing, because you are aware. There's an awareness. You're there, but
that glimpse is what Marriott explained, and it could happen anywhere, any situation. You don't have to be meditating nothing. That's how I practice, to get a snap of that glimpse if I could. Could be anytime, anywhere. I think, and that's a practice. And that's just a spark that's very good for you to be learning all this. But like you said,
I just share my own experience about this. You know, you get to you kind of get to the doorway of this doorway where, and it's not something we even maybe notice, but this primordial self cherishing or self grasp, actually just the basic grasping, I exist as a thing, I'm a thing, and I exist. That actually, you could say, is the major obstacle. That comfort of being a somebody, a something, you know, even at the most subtle level, that becomes the ultimate obstacle.
Correct.
To getting. So this is why this intellectual analysis is kind of this proven method by our lineage of, you know, you analyze it for however many lifetimes it takes till you become so comfortable with the concept that walking through the door finally is possible. You know, and I think, you know, for us, that's sort of we spend a lot of time thinking we're Buddhists, not noticing that we're not even at the door going, you know, am I gonna
grasping?
Am I really gonna?
I mean, I think a lot of this is that we're this process.
I just wanted to read. I was distracted and missed because I just got a message from Lama Pasang, who most of you know, who is in India unexpectedly because his mother is in the hospital.
Oh dear.
He's up in Dharamsala.
Well, let's keep him in our thoughts and
Anyway, her mom, she's, old.
Yeah. I mean,
Tibetan
yeah.
especially, she's in her
Yeah.
70s or
Yeah.
nearly 80.
Um,
Hard luck.
so given what we were just talking about, this whole text that Shantideva has written here, it's about sort of talking our ego into accepting this idea, because what Kavita was just talking about is we don't, this self-grasping, that's what the ego is. That's what the ego is, and we don't want to let go of it. The ego wants to be king of the mountain,
The intellect.
Right. Intellect is a kind of, the intellect doesn't necessarily have to be of the ego. I mean, I would say Shantideva had great intellect, and the Buddha, of course, had great intellect. It's this idea of me and mine, and I'm the most important thing. I am the center of my universe, right? And we need to talk ourselves into thinking, well, no. Remember when we were doing the exchanging of self and other last time, to realize, we're part of a much larger body. We're just part of this, and the ego doesn't like to think that way. And so all of this is sort of getting ourselves used to the idea. And I think once we're actually quite used to the idea, I don't think the practice will be that difficult.
Exactly.
Because it's natural.
Yeah.
So His Holiness says that after we've had such a direct realization of emptiness, even though a phenomena appear to exist independently from their own side, we understand that they don't really exist that way. And he says it's like a magician's illusion. We see the illusion, we can appreciate that it's an illusion, but we know that it's just an illusion. We know that it's the magician's trick, and we're not convinced that it is actually happening the way it appears to be happening. So he says he says that there's a combination. The way when you've had a direct experience of emptiness, he says there's a combination of when you see things, it's like they appear one way, but you know that they exist another way. So you're kind of seeing the two truths together. And so though they appear to our senses to exist independently from their own side, we understand that they are empty of any kind of independent self-existence. So we're looking at the way things appear to us, and we're at the same time going, they just appear this way, but I know that they actually don't exist this way. I know that everything, and not just physical objects, but thoughts, everything is dependently arising on something before it, which was dependently arising on something before that. That's why they call it emptiness. There is no thing that you can find and say, wow, that's it, that's it. So he says that kind of view, where you understand that they appear one way, but they exist another way, that is the correct way to perceive relative truth. That's what we want to be looking at. We have been perceiving it incorrectly for a long time. And for those of us, that's the correct way of perceiving relative truth for those of us on the path of a bodhisattva who have not yet attained Buddhahood. They say when you reach Buddhahood, and I don't understand how this works, but there is no difference between the two in the appearance. A Buddha sees relative truth and ultimate truth together in union at the same time.
So, Christopher, I want to ask if dependent arising and emptiness are two different sides of the same coin, and they go together. And you're saying that you see, I can't remember, relative reality, I guess, or conventional reality and ultimate reality simultaneously, even though you haven't experienced emptiness, which I thought you should have experienced to understand ultimate reality. But so what then is the distinction between dependent arising and emptiness?
Can I,
Oh, okay.
yesterday I kept listening over and over again to, this is not gonna fully answer, but it addresses this directly. Andy Wistreich. I've been listening to a series of talks that he gives for Kala Chakra practitioners. And he made a big point about that they're not the same. So this is what I understood. Dependent arising, you could say refers to a number of levels, but say, in a physical form way, all the causes and conditions that we talk about, like that Ajay was talking about, the atoms and the, all that stuff. Dependent arising at one level is that. At another level, it's things like, a mother is only a mother because a child, and a child's only a mother because of, they co-arise.
Now, is that dependent origination?
This
or
is a dependent arising.
Okay.
So, it's, of course, at a consciousness level as well. So it's, all this, causes and conditions, both, in, matter and in consciousness, you could say. Emptiness, he was using the Sanskrit term for these two, which I don't remember, so I won't, but emptiness, he said, is not the same as dependent arising in fullness, because it's talking about the mode of existing devoid of intrinsic, inherent, from its own side, self-generated existence. So he's making this distinction. You can see dependent arising is talking about the interrelated nature of things, whereas emptiness is talking about the fact that the it's almost like, well, what that means is that nothing exists intrinsically. He used, I think that was shunyata. So, but suchness, it's like, I don't want to say more words.
Suchness is good.
So if that makes any sense, so that you've got dependent arising, all of the causes and conditions that we're always talking about, that phenomena depend on, everything that's co-arising is arising, dependent arising based on all these causes and conditions, co-arising with the mode of existence of suchness. In other words, as to an apprehending consciousness, we need to be aware that this co-arising is taking place. So it's almost like the phenomenal universe or phenomenal spheres of existence are there, and our awareness that it's a phenomenal. Sorry, I don't know. That's my best. That's the best for today.
Okay, well,
But
thank
he
you
made
for
a big
that
point that
debatable-
they're not exactly the same.
I understand.
Yeah,
I
that
found
was-
it.
that was-
I found it really easy to understand when I heard. Well, when it went through my brain or mind or whatever, was that everything arises from emptiness. So the emptiness is like the stillness, and everything arising from that, like, oh, that's a dog, is movement. And so they coexist, because one arises and your consciousness is there to reflect it, but it's all coming from this ground of stillness, of emptiness. Everything is arising. They call dancing stillness, like the stillness, and there's dancing around it with our thoughts arising, with our feelings getting emotive, and it's all coming from it. That's how I see it.
Kind of like the eye of a hurricane, what you're describing, I mean, very still, and yet at the center of it. Dependent arising is sort of like the mechanism of emptiness. I mean, it's the mechanics of it all, but as we're saying, there is no independently existing I. There's no independently existing anything. Because it is all dependently arising. And so that's what's the emptiness that they're talking about, the emptiness of this kind of self of persons, they say, which is an I or a me or a you, and the self of phenomena, which would be my body, your body, my house, your wife.
The chair.
Yeah, so we often think, or the chair or anything, we often think I'm my body. No, because there's a difference between this I and the things that we say belong to the I. So it's the I, which is a complete fabrication.
It's a conventionality.
Yeah, it's
So we can
a
pull together
conventionality.
our-
That's why we say my body.
Yeah, that's why we
I
say
don't
my
say
body.
I body.
And we say my mind. We say my conscious.
Yeah.
This I thinks it owns all of it.
Yeah.
And this is where we,
Think of I as consciousness.
yes, you can.
Put I in consciousness. And so when you say I, it's like, well, it's not really what we think of I, but it's the consciousness of awareness.
Right. I mean, but basically what the I that I was just talking about is ego I.
Ego, yeah.
This is me, mine. Okay. I mean, this is great. I mean, I don't care how long we take on this,
No.
because the point is to get it, so we may be on this chapter for a couple of years. I don't know.
If we actually get it, we'll all be levitating. in our
Yes, we'll be
chairs.
floating around the room.
But if we think we got it,
Yeah. Just keep going till you think we got
Um,
it.
So our
Good point, Eric.
misconceptions, the way we misconceive things, our misconceptions that superimpose a sense of goodness or badness onto other objects they are a complete mistake. And what they do is they serve as the basis for our generating our afflictive emotions of attachment and aversion, or desire and anger. It's our misconceptions that we are sort of projecting onto everything that are the cause of our suffering, our cause of our anger and desire, that are not helpful. There can be good things that are helpful. Sometimes, anger can be helpful as well. But the things that we get, just pissed off or so absorbed in, so attached to, so desire that we can't let go, this is a misconception. This is a misconception. So that misconception causes us to have an incorrect view of relative truth and an incorrect view of ultimate truth. So what we're trying to do is get the correct view. So once we understand this is what we're doing, the two truths can be posited in the following way. An ultimate truth is that which is understood by a direct, valid cognition in which all dualistic appearances have fallen away. So an ultimate truth directly realized by a valid cognition, all appearances will have fallen away. And what I will say is, when I had that glimpse of the clear light mind, what happened to me is I had my eyes open. We were sitting out under the tree in the front yard, and sort of everything kind of disappeared. The trees, the grass, everything just sort of went to what seemed like maybe white or something like that. And I could no longer even have a thought. I couldn't have a conceptual thought, but this blissful awareness, just this presence, made itself known or something. I experienced it, and it just lasted, I don't know, not long, not long. And everything came back and I saw everything. So it's something, so this thing that it's saying, I've had a glimpse of this where it's saying, ultimate truth is that which is understood by a direct, valid cognition in which all dualistic appearances have fallen away. It just all fell away. There was this and the other sense was that it was whatever it was just kept expanding constantly, never stopping. It was like a fountain, and a bottomless fountain that just kept expanding, expanding out and out and out and out and out. So there was some sense of movement to it, but no appearance or anything like that, or no conceptual thought. Then that's a definition of ultimate truth, or one definition of ultimate truth. Then a relative truth could be defined as that which is understood by a direct, valid consciousness, cognition, in which dualistic appearances have not fallen away. In other words, we see everything here, but we know that they don't exist the way they appear to exist to us. That ultimately they are empty of any self generated existence. Everything we see, everything we think, everything we hear, smell, taste, touch, whatever, is like that. It is not self-generated, and we tend to think that it is. We tend to reify everything and concretize everything and say, this is the way this person is, and they'll never change, and this is the way this couch is, and it shouldn't get dirty, and things like that. That is the incorrect view, thinking that they exist in that way. Nothing exists in that way. Everything is impermanent, everything can change, which is great news for us. I mean, really, it's great news. And that's the way, that would be the correct view of relative truth, where you see all the appearances haven't fallen away, but you understand what it is you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. We're not reifying it and saying that it exists this way from its own side. This is where we get into all of our trouble in all of our relationships. It's all because of that. We're thinking the person should exist one way and they're not existing the other way. And this is how anger arises. This is how all the problems of the world arise.
And everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big deal. So what is meant by dualistic appearances is the appearance of an object combined with the appearance of that object's independent self-existence. So that's what is meant by a dualistic appearance. The appearance of an object with the appearance, let me get this right. Combined, the appearance of an object, appearance of an object, combined with the appearance of it existing
Consciousness.
Yeah, to our consciousness, with the appearance of it to our consciousness of having independent self-existence. That's a dualistic appearance. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but what we need to know is that it doesn't exist that way. Then we have the correct view of relative truth. We have the correct view of relative truth. So this phrase, and Kavita mentioned some of them, independent self-existence, it has a very specific meaning in Mahayana Buddhism. It refers to an object's or an entity's supposed existence from its own side. Supposed existence from its own side. However, such a mode of existence is utterly non-existent. It is a misconception. It is only conceived by a mind that mistakenly grasps at what is known as true existence. So according to Shantideva and the Prasangika Madhyamika school, to which he subscribed, all of the following terms refer to this falsely conceived mode of existence. And all of these following terms are to be considered as synonyms, that they're meaning the same thing when we're talking about relative truth and ultimate truth, okay? So here are the terms: independent self-existence, true existence, inherent existence, truly existent, and existence from its own side. These are all talking about the same thing. And what happens is we can easily be confused in our study of this wisdom chapter, in our study, whenever we're studying emptiness, if we don't have a clear idea of what's being referred to. I remember when Lama Basang was talking about this was way early on. It was some of our earliest classes, I don't know how many, 17 years ago. And he was talking about, emptiness, and he was talking about truly existent. And I kept thinking, oh, this is it, this is the thing. And what he was talking about was a misconception of seeing something as being truly existent. And I was just getting super confused by the terminology. So it's really important that we understand the terminology and what they're getting at here. It's the way the mistaken consciousness sees it. The mistaken consciousness sees it as independently self-existing, truly existing glasses, and that's the mistaken view.
So Christopher, sorry to keep
No.
butting in, but so, okay, I am looking at you and I see you, but I know you are not an independent entity, or you don't exist independently from your own self. What does that mean I have just done?
That means that you are starting to train your conceptual mind to look at things in another way, which is super important. Rather than just go on this sort of this not even thinking. It's sort of like just from our gut, we believe when we come out of the womb and we see something there, we think that exists out there from its own side independently. Now what we're doing is we're training our mind, our conceptual mind, to start thinking a little bit differently about it. And this is like, I think it was Kavita or somebody saying, maybe Merritt, a door opening. It's like a door opening in our consciousness to let in a different kind of view. And this, when we were doing the Mahamudra meditation, there had to be a period before that, and there was, where we would conceptually go through sort of untraining our mind about the way we actually think things are, and breaking it down and saying, everything I'm hearing, everything I'm seeing, is I'm giving it all the meaning that it has for me. I'm projecting onto it some kind of meaning that is not actually there inherently within it. And this is a really important first step, to start.
I guess what I'm asking is, from the definitional standpoint of what you've been talking about today, and how Shantideva says we should see true, I don't know, I can't remember if he said true reality, or, because it's a combination of seeing both conventional or relative as well as ultimate. But so if I just tell you I can do what I just said, it seems to me that I meet the definition of relative and ultimate reality, even though I have not had an experience of emptiness.
No, what you've met is the definition of the correct view of relative.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So it's
the correct view of relative truth. The incorrect view of relative truth is saying these glasses really exist from their own side. The correct view of relative truth is saying these glasses don't actually exist the way they inherently appear to me.
I would like to propose that a better way of saying is the correct understanding of relative truth.
You could say correct
Because
understanding.
view implies a realization.
Yeah, okay. But wrong view is a wrong realization.
I think, one thing we're not saying, and what has to be said at some point, is all of this is the play of consciousness.
Absolutely.
Which is more or less what Susie was saying.
Yeah.
And
the dance of consciousness.
It is a lot to take on board, that all of the dense layers of societal modes of doing things, what you wear, what you dress, how you eat, what's a family, what's a this, what's a that, all of these layers, all of the layers of political, all the layers of what we call, the rules of finance and the rules of this and all of these incredible dense layers are merely the play of consciousness. And we are really a little uncomfortable with that, because we really want there to be science. We want there to be math. We want there to be the physical world. We want there to be stuff that's,
that exists from its own side.
I mean, when you really start to get close to the edge of this, it's like, wow, what our minds are doing is fucking amazing. Okay,
Well,
And I think-
as
and
His
I don't
Holiness,
think- I don't
You
think
go-
we ever get rid of that, and nor should we. But I think we have to learn to see through that, or see it dancing around in the periphery as we're relaxing and letting all that go out of the way as we expand into the more emptiness side of things.
Yeah, that's Susie, that's a good point, and that's a good way of putting it, and it's very similar to what His Holiness said, is you see it as if it's a magician's illusions.
Yes.
It's a play. I mean, it's not like the magician isn't actually doing, there is something there that you're seeing the magician do, but you know that it's just a trick, that it's a mirage, that it's
Exactly.
an illusion.
Exactly.
But you can see it, it's there.
Yeah, and you can't stop it.
Right.
There's no way you can stop thoughts arising. And so I think, yeah, that's where we get stuck, is these thoughts arising, we follow them because they're like chocolate cake, aren't they? They're much more interesting than bland nothingness to our imagine, it catches us. And so we're never going to be able to stop that going on in our, coming into our consciousness, but you can stop yourself by the wisdom, by learning through all these teachings like now, that isn't the big deal. That's just your distraction, and you can see them as something else, and there they are in the periphery while you're sitting in the bliss stillness. There's this movement going on and you're aware of it, but you're not completely dragged into it, and then you've lost the other bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we're drawn into the illusion or the magician's trick, say like when we were watching a movie and we get very, very absorbed in that movie, and we get either terribly frightened by the movie or we start crying because of the movie. And that's just like, it's just like, pixels and audio. And we are projecting, and it's a good trick. It's a very good trick, magician's trick, all of these movies and things and everything we watch and the news and all of it. It's a very good trick, and we get drawn right into it. But the problem is it triggers our disturbing emotions. It triggers our, like Susie's saying, the chocolate cake, the thing we lust after and want, or it triggers our complete aversion to it. Can't stand it. That is disgusting. I hate that.
There's one other part of this that I want to mention, which you get to in some of the more quote advanced unquote practices, which is we start to take responsibility. As Susie said, we don't ever stop the play of consciousness, but we take responsibility for the appearance that our consciousness is generating.
And our reaction to it.
And
We take responsibility for our
all
reaction.
this generating of appearances, we recognize our responsibility and it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what a Buddhist is doing. They have a play of consciousness. They're not.
Oh, sure, of
Be
course.
aware.
To be aware, really. Aware.
That's
of
all.
what
Susie was saying.
That's not.
Be aware that it is an illusion. At the same time, you cannot avoid it. But at the same time, don't get sucked into it. Because getting stuck and identified with it causes which is your mind, to create this thing that makes it difficult to say, I hate this, or I love this. So everything is there in the realm, which we know is an illusion. You can call whatever you want, but I think being aware, noticing it, and deciding on yourself, do I want to get attached to it? Or do I know that this is some kind of movie, a light and pixels and audio coming into me? Because we do cry, we do get excited watching the movie. What is it? It's we being fallen into the trap of the movie to cause the reaction in us that makes us cry or happy or joy. I think that's what the real life is.
Yeah, but as long as we know we're doing it.
Exactly.
If we know that's
this
what we're doing.
teaching is
Yeah.
making us aware that I have a potential to be aware. Like the question Brian asked, there's no quite answer to it, but I think be aware and your decision to get attached or not to get attached.
And that's where the wisdom aspect.
Yeah, a lot of people
wisdom
don't
wings.
understand that they're getting attached to it, so they start hating something.
Yeah,
or you are so much attached, you're loving it so much,
Mhm.
which ends up in suffering anyway.
right.
But the point is, whole this training is about getting aware and taking ourselves further and further to say what is happening really, right? And keep our balance in place, not to go high and low and up and down, which is the normal pattern of our
Mhm,
human
mhm.
life. We go ups and downs and left and right. And what Kovida mentioned about rules of the maths and science and business law and politics, this is all our realities on the relative side. But I take it as being consciousness and awareness, which leads to the emptiness knowledge, is what you have in your disposal
Mhm.
to not get sucked into this virtual world, making you generate this emotions.
Yeah,
So
and the problem is that the emotions that they have effects that we can
No,
experience. It's there is suffering, you
we
know,
are
and there's
creating our emotions. Nobody's creating my emotion. I am creating my emotion, but why am I creating that emotion? Because of all this mind and all that realm causing me, which is attachment and awareness and all that. So I think my key is to be aware and notice that what is happening. You got to be aware.
one of the things that Buddhism says is that when we're talking about illusions, right, and magicians' tricks and all that kind of stuff, it always says things are illusory or they're like illusions. It never says they are illusions. It's never saying illusions are real. It's saying things appear in an illusory way, and we have the ability to cut through that. And this is what this training is all about, is to cut through that. Because if we're not able to cut through that, then nothing is going to stop cyclic existence. There will be nothing to stop it. It'll just keep going and going and going, and the suffering will keep cycling around, and there'll be some happiness, there'll be some suffering, but ultimately it will just never stop.
And that's why it's two wings. That's the wisdom that we're trying to absorb now,
Right.
to find how to get back to our original state of emptiness when we let it all go. Is that that always feels kind of slightly opposing, but think about it a lot and then don't ever think about it at all. But they go together like two wings.
That's right. So then we move on, and Shantideva starts talking about there are two kinds of people in this world. So this is stanza 3. In light of this, what we've been talking about, the misperceiving, the mistaken views, and ultimate truth and relative truth. In light of this, within the world, two kinds of people are observed. Those with yogic insight and the common run of people. In this regard, the views of ordinary folk are undermined by yogis who themselves are in the world. So what is he saying here? With regard to the understanding of the two truths, Shantideva says that within the world of cyclic existence, there are two kinds of people that he has observed. There are those, such as Buddhist yogis, engaged in the philosophical investigation of the two truths, relative truth and ultimate truth, who have not yet had a direct realization of emptiness and completed, the path. And then he says there are, but they possess varying levels of insight and meditative absorption, calm abiding and special insight. They're getting there. They're high up on the path. And they are referred to by Shantideva as worldly yogis. They're not yogis who have sort of made the transition and gone beyond and become a bodhisattva that's gone into emptiness and not emptiness, into become a Buddha. Then there are ordinary worldly people who are without these qualities. Okay, so within the category of ordinary people, there are those who have no interest at all or engagement in philosophical investigation. They believe without question that their I is an unchanging reality. They regard their body as a single unitary whole thing, and they regard their mind as a permanent thing. Those ordinary people who are interested in philosophical study and engagement have put forth numerous non-Buddhist doctrines, all of which can be brought under the two general headings of eternalism and nihilism. An example of eternalism would be the assertion of an eternal self or soul, along with something that serves as the original cause of existence. And I think we're all familiar with those kinds of doctrines. Right?
God.
Yeah. Oh, we're all familiar with those kinds of things. There are many, many, many religions that do that, posit that. An example of nihilism would be the denial of past and future lives and the denial of karma, the law of cause and effect. You know, that, oh, I can do this and I can get away with it. You know, I can do whatever I want as long as nobody knows. This is the common, this is how we grow up, right? We all, as little kids, we know that one really well.
By the way, the term yogi is a Sanskrit word. We use it in Nepali too. It's basically, yogi means practitioner, sent toward type of personality.
Yeah, so a Buddhist practitioner.
Yeah.
Pretty high.
Yes.
Pretty high.
Yogis are, that's what Shantideva is referring to as a yogi, meaning somebody going to the practice and then trying to understand this, and they have gone certain levels, are yogis. But yogis could be any level too. You and I could be yogis too, because we're on that path, or somebody who's already reached some kind of level. So it's a Sanskrit word he's referring.
Well, that's very good what you said, because that's what he's talking about. He's talking about all levels of yogis, of these people who are sort of really investigating these two truths. Yeah, that's what he's talking about. And that brings us into the Buddhist tenets. So, where are we? 10 minutes. Might as well dip our foot in the tenets. So all theories, such as those that the common people, the worldly people, the theories that they have about existence and the cause of existence and the soul and all of this stuff, all of those theories are successively refuted by yogis of the Buddhist tradition. They just refute those theories, who teach that bodies are aggregations of parts and not whole and single entities, and that the mind exists in an impermanent process of constant change. The arguments that refute the theories of eternalism and nihilism, Shantideva goes into later. So this brings us then into the Buddhist schools of tenets, and there are basically four major schools. We're going to do a very short run through of these because they are so complex, and I don't think we'll even get through them all in 10 minutes. But so it's important for us to have a brief overview and understanding of the Buddhist schools of tenets and how each of them posit the two truths, because they each posit them in different ways, and they successively get more and more refined and clearer and clearer.
You might just talk more about how the four schools, rather than even get into one, just set it up more since we have short time.
Well, all right. I mean, I am setting it up because what they do, the four schools, what they do is they represent the evolution of the philosophical thought that leads to the correct view of reality. So it's really important for us to see these four schools as we go through them, because you'll see some of them they're positing things that are being posited by physicists and scientists today. And they're saying that these what they're positing as the things that physicists and scientists today are positing, they're saying, well, this is what ultimate reality is. They're going down to the level of partless particles of, they don't call them electrons and photons and neutrons, but they're going down to that level. We're talking 5th century. They were doing this, so they start, that's one, and it keeps getting more and more and more and more refined as you get to the higher and higher schools. One school says that nothing actually exists externally out there. It's just all a projection of our mind. But that school says, but the mind does exist inherently. So you can see they go to various different levels. I mean, the higher the level they go, like that level refutes the one that says these partless particles are the ultimate truth. It's like, no, because there's how are you ever going to find a partless particle, really, honestly? It's always going to have, I remember Geshe Drakpa said, no matter how small anything gets, you'll still be able to say that it's directional. There's a north side, a south side, east side, west side, and top and bottom of whatever the particle is. So if it has sides, it's not partless, no matter how small you get. So each school successively refutes all of these.
So is it sounds like it's schools of awareness.
It's basically,
Like,
they're,
where's the,
these yogis, these practitioners are trying to figure out what's going on, what is reality. And they're basing it on kind of the Buddhist teachings, but the Buddhist teachings are not readily grasped by an ordinary mind. So they are, the great thing about it is that we get to see the process that they've gone through. We get to see for ourselves, oh yeah, I have thought that. I have thought what they're saying here, but that actually is what they're saying is not the ultimate reality, and they have different ways of positing relative reality as well.
Well, they use the same word for different meanings too.
Ugh,
That's an important thing to mention.
I know. Hey.
So mind-boggling. Oh my God, I get a headache just thinking about when Geshe was trying to tell us that.
I know. I mean, the tenets. Yeah, I kind of have this. But I forced myself to do some research here.
Well, it takes, when we get into it, it takes a lot of nursing ourselves along to understand that one school talks about ultimate truth, which doesn't mean the same thing.
I think the important thing to remember, what we're going to do is we're going to go from the lower school up to the highest. And so as we go through each school, remember that even though they're saying this is ultimate reality and this is relative reality, that is being refuted by the next school coming up. And we'll see the reasons that the next school coming up refutes those views. And it's very helpful. It's like the study of science. You see, you understand, you go from Galileo to Einstein to, the quantum physics and beyond. And you see the pathway that it all took, and then you can understand, then you can make sense of, I don't know, what's the latest thing? It's not even quantum physics. It's something beyond that now, which you go, that's magic. But it's not. So when we get to the highest school and we go, that's magic, that can't be, but it's not. And because we've gone through the lower schools and gone through a succession of seeing how they came to their conclusions, those conclusions were refuted, new conclusions, those were refuted, and the new conclusions finally to this ultimate conclusion that nobody can refute. Then we really can be sure about what the Buddha is talking about. We can be sure about what Shantideva is talking about. We can be sure if we put our effort into this practice, we're going to get a result that's meaningful, and makes a difference. So I guess we can probably stop there. And we'll say some dedication prayers. Let me see.
While you're doing that, just give a little pitch. I've been working on the Geshe Drakpa archives. And we're very fortunate. The first 2 years he permitted us to videotape the teaching. So I'm gonna offer a few nights this month, but ultimately all the stuff is online, and I'm organizing the website. But if you go to our website, you find it. And there's honestly, it's just really wonderful to see Geshe Drakpa and Lama Pasan translating for all those years and, yeah, just thought I'd mention it. Little
Okay.
treasure trove.
Are you going to have those at the house? Or we just take them around?
It's on Zoom. It's on Zoom, and I'll be sending the link. You can watch and listen to those videos now anytime you want. But I thought
I
because
kind of
they,
like to get together with the Geshe Drakpa crowd and watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
the
yeah.
other good thing about that is we could have discussions like we're having here today.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm introducing.
Cup of tea, and I'll bring a chocolate cake.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so let's just do the just remember how incredibly fortunate we have been to meet Geshe Nima, Venerable Rabina, Geshe Zopa, Lama Pasan, Geshe Drakpa, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is in the world today while we're here. I mean, without them, we would not have this info. We just wouldn't. And this is fantastic information that can change our lives and can change the world. And so in this dedication, let's do this final one that says on page 3, in all our lives, may we not be separated from true lamas, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma, fully perfecting the virtues of levels and paths. May we speedily attain the state of Vajradhara. And that is the state of Vajradhara, is this final state of after you've had the direct realization of emptiness, and then you remove all the obscurations to the afflictive emotions and all the obscurations from omniscience, then you finally achieve what they call jnana or yeshe, which is this exalted, completely pure wisdom of a Buddha. And that's where we're going. And that wisdom, that's the thing that's going to be able to basically save the world. And we're each headed there. Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right, stay tuned. This is the transition between Buddhism study and Tibetan language study.
So I'll turn off the recording.